People of Middle-earth, we are finally at the penultimate episode, and that is kind of just flown by. Literally next week is the finale of The Rings of Power, and episode 7, while interesting things happened for sure, and we will talk about that, we're going to get in some theory crafting as always. However, you know, jumping into a little bit of the review already, not that I didn't enjoy this episode, it's just after it felt like we had quite a bit of exposition in the first 4 or 5 episodes, then things finally started to ramp up quite a lot more with Adar, the orcs, getting into creating the land of Mordor from that of the southern lands, of which we all kind of knew was coming if you know a bit of the source material. And I feel like whenever I say if you know the source material, I'm always going to get someone say, well, this isn't the source material, but you know what I mean. And then we had quite a big bolstering episode last week, but this episode I feel like kind of slowed the pacing down. Maybe it's the somewhat calm before the storm, and I would love to know if you felt like that was the right approach. I feel like episode 6, which was, you know, a faster, bigger episode, 7 and 8, the finale, should all be keeping that momentum of the snowball. It's just we had the snowball going down the mountain, getting more speed, getting more snow, and then this episode it kind of just like the sun came out and it dissolved it a little bit, if you know what I mean. And I'm sure next week they're going to end it on quite a bang. Just let me know your thoughts on that, but let's get right into this. I would really appreciate a like if you enjoy these Rings of Power breakdown videos. We do breakdowns, news, reviews on the channel every day in every corner of the pop culture realm, so do consider subscribing here. And right at the beginning, of course, we have Galadriel waking up covered in ash. Now, I do stand by what I said at the end of last week. It is really weird how many people, I mean, sure, there were people who were burnt, there were people who lost limbs and whatnot, but the thing is, I don't get why everyone wasn't just decimated by a literal volcanic eruption. I mean, just think of Pompeii. I don't think the whole defense of this is a fantasy show stands when it comes to stuff like this. As I said last week, if the logic of you can get cut by a sword works, then you should also not be able to survive something like this. So I do feel like, to be a bit critical here, that there should have been some kind of cover taken, or as the rumblings were happening, I don't know what they would have done, but just some kind of effort from the writers to have some kind of shielding from that of the blast wave. Not taking away from how cool that ending of the episode was, but yeah, Galadriel was fine, and she was like standing right in the wave, like, come at me, bitch. We had Isildur save his friend Valandil. We had Ontamo, I believe that's his name, die, unfortunately, and I feel bad for him because he never just wanted to even be a part of this fighting in the first place, and like Isildur and Valandil, who are a bit more up for it. I think the queen around this moment gets blinded by some of the fire that is coming down, and Isildur gets under all of that rubble, I suppose you could say. I guess this is just to kind of serve that story that they're doing with Elendil and Isildur, of which, what I've noticed from a lot of fans, they really do enjoy. I really do actually like the actor behind Elendil. I think he's fantastic. Obviously, the tension behind this isn't so existent for me because, you know, Isildur's fine. I mean, for crying out loud, we know exactly what happens in the future here. So I guess it's just meant to serve some kind of development for the characters such as Elendil this episode, because, for example, after he feels as though he's lost his son, the way he looks at Galadriel is in complete anger. He completely regrets picking her up from the sea, bringing her to Numenor, and there's almost this disdain as well as hatred in his eyes. Now, this is a fallout from what he fears Galadriel has brought upon, I guess, Numenor and his son, and how he supported that, and now look what's happened. And to be honest, I don't know if that's going to go away anytime soon, because, you know, we can't forget that he sailed off with Miriel, the Queen Regent, back to Numenor, thinking his son has died. And we'll talk a bit about that later with what waits Miriel in Numenor, and that's not going to be great. So I guess Elendil's disdain for Galadriel and his choice to support her and whatnot will endure for some time, possibly into season 2, because, you know, we've only got 1 episode left. I mean, I know they're an hour long or so, but I don't know if that could be flipped back on its head anytime soon. To be honest, I felt like the Theo and Galadriel stuff was a bit random this episode. They had a pairing. I mean, in one way I can appreciate it, but in another way, I didn't really care too much for it. It's also a bit confusing as to how they're all in the town. Yes, I know there's smoke and everyone's a bit bewildered after the volcanic eruption, but it's just like, I don't get how Galadriel and Theo ended up like somewhere else trying to navigate their way back to the Numenorean camp. Yet the queen and everyone there was there in the town, what remained of the town that is, and then made their way out into the camp. I suppose we're meant to assume that she went looking for for Halbrand. There was some nice moments there, some nice elvish wisdom, I guess you could say, from Galadriel, I guess, bolstering. I just feel, I know Theo's a kid, but there were a few moments that annoyed me. Like, he just wanted to go out and charge into the orcs and get himself killed. I know that's not like the first time we've seen that in any kind of TV show or movie. That this has been done many times before, where the kid just feels like he can take on a whole army of orcs. But you know what I mean? I just wasn't enjoying this part of the episode as much as I wanted to. She talks about losing her brother Finrod, and also, believe it or not, her husband, Kellerborn, and we get a reference to him. It's just like, wait, what? You think he's dead? I mean, obviously, he's not dead. I know people like to really dig into this show for the differences in source material, but obviously here, they've taken him out the picture so they could do a little bit of flirty-worty, maybe with Halbrand, and who knows what's going to go on there. Of course, we'll address some theories there a little bit later. Kellerborn, he's been missing technically since he went off to war, because she did say the war seemed so very far away then. When he went to it, she chided him, which I guess she regrets. Technically, ever since then, or around about then, Galadriel went on her search to hunt for Sauron for like 5 centuries, so I don't know where the heck Kellerborn is. Is he just chilling, having like a party somewhere? I really don't know. I guess there's gonna be theories now that when eventually they find Kellerborn, maybe he's been held prisoner this whole time from Sauron, I don't know. And then when maybe Halbrand and Galadriel approach him and they find him, he's just like, Galadriel, what are you doing with him? And then that's where it's like, what do you mean? It's my friend Halbrand. It's like, no. He's the one who captured me. I mean, obviously, complete fan fiction speculation there. That's just going down the meme route of Halbrand is Sauron. But I would love to know what you think the Rings of Power are doing with Kellerborn. This episode, we go back to the Harfoots, and I was somewhat looking forward to this with regards to the Stranger storyline, because we've taken a little bit of a break from that. And here they're like, oh, wood smoke, and then lo and behold, it's the rock that just launched its way out of Mount Doom. So the Harfoots aren't too far away from where the blast radius would have been from what got, you know, chucked out of Mount Doom. I like how Sadok says that these mountains go to sleep for God knows how long, and only usually wake when evil is rising. And we know that evil is rising. That's the whole freaking point and premise of this show. Sauron is coming. We have the mystics looking for him, even though they seem to be looking for the stranger. But I'm telling you, the mystics there with that little freaking big-ass staff with like the eye on it, and also like the kind of 2 little pointy bits, kind of reminiscent of the Tower of Barad-dûr with the Great Eye of Sauron on it. Not that that has been technically forged yet, but you get my point. They think they're looking for Sauron. Maybe the stranger is Sauron. Maybe they just need to awaken his memories in him. Maybe after Ada thought he killed Sauron, he split him, as he said, or whatever. That's why he's come back as a blank slate, maybe. This is where all the theories are going there with the stranger. But then, of course, he could be one of the Astari, such as Gandalf or someone else. We still really don't know, even though it's the penultimate episode, and I really hope that we get big answers in that finale next week. If it is Sauron, it's kind of a bit of a shame in a way, because here we have the stranger just, you know, looking at this burnt tree, casting this spell. He essentially caused healing in the tree, and this place was more or less conjuring into a new Shire right after he left, after Sadok gave him the remnants of a page of a star chart saying that the tall folk or whatever are that way, so go that way. They might be able to help you find the star chart that you're looking for. And the stranger, you know, he doesn't understand the language yet, but his demeanor is a little bit more familiar with people. He's a little bit less feral, I guess you could say. He expresses gratitude in his face. We need to talk about those pesky mystics. And last week I was calling the main one, Eminem, a woman, and people were like, no, man, that's a man. I'm telling you, all 3 of them are women. Now, as we know, they have been on the trail of the stranger ever since the frickin' comet of his landed, and they've been tracking him. And they go up to the tree, they see, okay, we've got a little symbol of a flower here. He must be that way. But that's when Nori, I think she senses that they're not really good, because she comes out, and I thought this was a bit silly because God knows what they could do, but she says, no, he went that way, which I'm guessing is a different direction to which he actually went. Interestingly, the main mystic takes something out of Nori's hair, and they stand over the Harfoots. We have Nori's father just like back off with a torch, and the main mystic takes the flame and extinguishes it, and then blows the flame and destroys all of the Harfoots' belongings. So yeah, these guys, I mean, if it wasn't obvious already, are are definitely evil motherfuckers. Without rambling too much there, I am still so intrigued because this stranger seems so nice in certain ways. He creates beauty, life, vegetation, plants, you know, stuff of bounty, as they say. He has a warm friendship with Nori, and it's yet these people are hunting for him or like seeking him. And you could argue they're trying to prevent this Istari, maybe Gandalf, from trying to stop Sauron. But then again, on the other side, of which seems more likely, just in terms of logic, that they believe they're trying to find someone like Sauron who's come back, but maybe he needs to be aided in bringing his memory back. So what side do you land on? Do you think they're going there with that intention, the latter of what I just said, but then they find out it's not actually who they've been seeking? Because that could be a good point, because as we saw Adar say, he thought he killed Sauron, and I don't think he was lying there. Maybe he did like do something to his physical form, which maybe did not obviously fully kill him, but it got to the point of where he's landed back down. I don't know, but maybe Sauron's been missing for a while and the mystics have been trying to find him and bring him back, and now a comet lands, so they think, that must be our boss. But then again, I guess that would get rid of all of the Halbrand theories. Meanwhile, with the dwarves, and I have to say, I really still like the dwarves. I think that is the best thing they have achieved in this series. I don't know about you guys, but I love Durin. We have the negotiations, if you will, from Elrond saying that if we're asking for something sacred from this mountain, we're going to give you something sacred in return. And that's when we have the king saying, okay, but I want to speak to my son first. But we do have the other dwarven lords being like, oh yes, you know, because that game and timber and whatnot, as Elrond said, could last them like at least 5 centuries. In that conversation with Durin and his father, they get into a bit of the backstory of the dwarves with how they were created from 2 elements, fire and rock, saying how the fire embraces the truth, and that basically is the time for the elves to end. And the thing is, the king is wise. Some of what Disa said later may be true, like with age becomes a bit of stubbornness, this, that, and the other, but he doesn't want to dig in earth that cannot support it, delving beyond the darkness, tempting shadow, and oh my, yeah, he definitely tempts a bit of a shadow later on. Later on, we have Elrond walk in on Disa and Durin talking about all of this. And once more, I really actually love this scene. The friendship between Elrond and Durin, this is exactly what personifies what I think a lot of people love about it. The actor behind Durin, when he got all misty-eyed, he's just, he plays a dwarf so well. His performance in this scene is just absolutely fantastic. He feels as though he's let his friend down. He's sending him more or less to his death. He has a way that he can stop all of this from happening, but his father is neglecting that chance to save the elven people. And as he said to his father, my friend is drowning and you expect me to kind of bat away his hand. Elrond gives the little sample of mithril back and Durin bats it away to the leaf, and the leaf heals, which actually surprised me, by the way. It's not like I didn't think the theory was true, but with what Kellerborn said, I thought that this could maybe be a bit of Sauron behind the scenes, like he wants them to get this mithril, bring it to the elves so it can further Kellerborn's plans of creating new powers and something he's never created before. And I thought maybe it's just like soaking in the light of the Valar from the mithril. Is that really going to save all the elven people, or is it for some other kind of ulterior motive? But here, you could see that darkness or rot or blot or whatever they want to call it on the leaf disappear. So that's when Durin was like, Elrond! So they went to go mine the mithril, or at least find it themselves in secret. As they're mining, well, Durin opens up a little freaking hole in the wall and there is an absolute huge deposit of mithril. The very veins that came down from that battle of the old ancient elf and Balrog can be seen all here. Absolute rich and deep deposits of ore. And that could be the very same Balrog that was fighting on the very tippy top of the mountain, but he's just now chilling all the way down there. Now, we do know from Lord of the Rings that, as it was said, that the dwarves mined too deep to the point of where they woke up the Balrog, and here, this could be their take on that, more or less. This is when the king arrives, absolutely pissed off, chucks Elrond out of Khazad-dûm, and this is when we get a scene between Durin and his father, the king. Durin feels as though, despite as much as what the king wants for his son, to be great and everything, he's kind of holding him back. And this is where things explode a little bit. Compares Elrond to a brother as if he was from his very own mother's womb, which absolutely triggers the king, and this in turn triggers Durin. And in this moment, he kind of disinherits him or disowns him. He grabs his little golden neck prince collar and throws it on the floor, tells him not to pick it up because it's not his anymore. Now, honestly, I don't really know where things are going to go from here with regards to repairing their relationship, but I think with what happens with what King Durin does, of which we're about to speak about, it is what will have to inevitably bring them together. If the Balrog kicks up a little bit of fuss, then maybe King Durin's gonna die, and naturally Durin the Fourth is just gonna come into succession. And that's how the elves will get their mithril, potentially. Alright, so the ending events of the episode, we have the Harfoots again. Nori is saying she's gonna go after the stranger, and we have Sadok and Poppy, who is essentially Nori's Samwise to her Frodo, going along with her, but I don't know how they're gonna find the stranger before the literal mystics do, if you know what I mean. Meanwhile, with Galadriel, we have her come across the camp after having a whole episode long of her and Theo. Elendil informs the Queen that they are ready to depart within the hour. They're going to leave a garrison behind for the Southlanders to find a place of refuge. And this is where the Queen doubles down with what Adar and the Orcs, or should I say Mordor in general, have begun. And this is where she vows that Numenor will return. And you see how devastated Elendil is in this moment. I think he realizes that not only is the Queen in for quite a disappointing reception when she returns back to Numenor, because not everyone was united in her decision to help the elves, basically, and the people of Middle-earth. And when I say help the elves, I mean basically rally with an elf, and that is Galadriel. But now she's going to go back there after being blinded, being defeated, and return with even more forces. That's not going to look good to the people. Also, Artharazon is going to have an absolute field day with aspiring to the throne here. Now, this is where Galadriel says she's going to report back to her High King, which is Gil-galad, but guess who is going with her? Well, you've already known because you've seen the episode, and that is when she stumbles across Halbrand, who is wounded. Now, this has put a few people off him being Sauron. I don't think that completely eliminates things, and again, I'm not saying I'm 80%, oh, he's Sauron. I really don't know. I just like entertaining any theory here on this channel, but you have to think, like, this guy is exactly where he needs to be all the frickin' time, and now he is going from here to the elves, where High King Gil-galad likes to chill out with Celebrimbor. So, oh, now we have Halbrand going to High King Gil-galad, of where Celebrimbor is nearby. And the reason why that's a big thing is because, as we know, Sauron comes back in the form of Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, befriends Celebrimbor, deceives the elves, gets Celebrimbor to forge the Rings of Power. But again, they want us to think that Halbrand is Sauron. That is something painfully obvious this show is trying to do. So that's why we have to also look at the other theories of whether, as we discussed in last week's review, he's the King of the Dead, of whom broke his oath to Isildur. Could be one of the Nazgul, could be the Witch King. Some people were saying that if he goes with Galadriel, which he is, to High King Gil-galad, that with Sauron maybe already being there. And that's another thing, by the way, lots of people are thinking, what if Sauron is actually already there, one of these elves already? Then Halbrand could be given one of the Rings of Power eventually in the show, and thus Galadriel loses Halbrand, which, you know, Halbrand may have never been Sauron. It could be another FU to Galadriel, kind of like Finrod, in where Galadriel yet again loses someone she cares about, and despite fans thinking for ages that Halbrand is Sauron, it ends up being somewhat of a tragic thing where this king of old, like the Nazgul, slips away into the shadow, and Galadriel just witnesses it, and it's just like, damn you, Sauron. And lastly, guys, Durin and Disa are bitching about the king, saying one day you will be king, and the mithril will be ours, but we have the king pick up the leaf, the proof that the mithril does work, and toss the leaf down. The little crater says seal it up, but, you know, it did kind of make me laugh that this leaf awoke the Balrog. Initially I thought, no way, like, the leaf didn't do it, the Balrog was already awake, but the wings were closed, and then when the leaf lands, you know, it disintegrates and the wings open. So it is kind of funny to me, as it appears, potentially, that the Balrog awoke from hibernation because of a little fall from a leaf. The design of the Balrog is incredibly accurate to Peter Jackson's depiction of the Balrog as well. This wouldn't technically be the end for Khazad-dûm, because don't forget that 7 dwarf lords do get Rings of Power, so it's, you know, the Rings of Power haven't even been forged yet in the Rings of Power timeline. So I would love to know your theories as to what exactly is going to be the sequence of events for Khazad-dûm from here on out. And then back with Adar in Mordor, essentially what happens here is that, hey, this is home, take off your cloaks, you can be in this daylight now. We have that title card appear from the Southern Lands to Mordor. I would have liked for Adar to say Mordor, but he didn't. It was a title card. And that more or less ends the episode. So, you know, I enjoyed it. It's just, I was kind of underwhelmed that episode 7, the penultimate episode, albeit it was possibly an intentional calm before the storm, after a storm last episode, I do feel like the final 3 episodes should have been a storm of lightning strike, again, another lightning strike, and then the finale, one big lightning strike. Not a lightning strike and then, oh, you know, it's a sunny day. And then hopefully in the finale it's going to be another bang. So I do feel like that's made some people watching this show watch this episode and be like, oh. As always, let me know your thoughts and theories on anything that could be coming our way in the finale. I will be back again next week to do that breakdown. Hopefully we get some banging reveals. Like this video if you did enjoy it. I know everyone tells you to do that. It really does help boost these videos out there a bit more. Subscribe for more videos like this on the channel. I'm going to love you and leave you now. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow people of Middle Earth in the next video. Goodbye.